Turkish media writes Greece has a volcano chaos. Is that substantiated? There's a professor of geophysics who says yes. He warns 3 signs for volcanic eruptions are already confirmed. What? And then we will look at what other experts say. How can they explain this unusual, never seen before phenomenon that is going on right now with this continuous rattling of Santorini, of this earthquake swarm, and it's just not stopping. Whenever we thought, ooh, are they going down in the 2 and the 3 ranges? Is it dying down? Whoopsie, it went back up in the 4 ranges up to 5. Same thing all through the day yesterday, and it's continuing like this today with magnitude 4 again already. I will get to this also in this video, but let's start out with the professor who says we might see a volcanic eruption underneath Santorini. We were looking at the underwater volcano Kolumbo and the group of craters that belong to Kolumbo. You see this grayish area, gray brownish area, that's that volcanic area, and you see the earthquake swarm is traveling west of that area. There's fault lines, there's tectonic forces, and then you see, of course, Santorini underneath has also the same color because it's a volcano as well that has produced probably one of the most devastating eruptions in the very, very past. But this is not likely that we will see something like this, although it's never ruled out. According to experts, they say that the big catastrophe happens only every 30,000 years, 20,000 years. So that's 3,600 years ago. But Santorini had an eruption in 1956 after a magnitude 7.7 earthquake. And they're pretty sure that the danger for such a large earthquake is high. That's also what the Prime Minister of Greece said. So they're preparing. He doesn't say it's coming for sure, but he wants to be as prepared as they can this time because they weren't in 1956. Over a third of the buildings was destroyed. People were unalived. And they don't want this to happen this time. But roughly 40%, maybe a little less, of the inhabitants of Santorini seem to be still on the island. Some want to stay. They say, we're born here, we do not want to leave. So the officials want to make sure that should a big earthquake happen, that these people are safe. And many, I've heard from people that live in Santorini, they said, well, we're leaving because we know we can survive an earthquake if we have help, but we cannot survive a volcanic eruption. So they must have felt something on their island that made them feel unease. So they left. Many left in panic, tourists and residents. Tourist season is approaching, and I think it's going to hurt badly because I don't think many tourists will come. Countries have issued travel warnings. I know Germany did issue one, but probably other countries as well, so not to go there right now. And there's another problem. The beautiful hotels that are cliffside where you can swim in the pool with this gorgeous views over the waters, many of them are either built without a permit or not built to codes with foundations that are too weak. This is what this current crisis has exposed. So they could collapse. We've already seen like rock slides coming down, and there's areas that are closed up. So this could really, really expose these weaknesses in these buildings that were like shooting out of nowhere because of this tourist boom, like 3.5 million people on the island every year. And locals are saying, well, we want that, that's all good, but we need to keep like the character of this island. It's getting too much. We don't have the infrastructure for this. We need a better port, we need upgrades. So they've been saying this for years. So this is a great area of concern. And now a Turkish professor says 3 signs for an eruption right at Santorini are confirmed. And he's a professor for geophysics, so he should know a little bit about that topic. He has raised concerns over an increasing seismic activity in Santorini and saying 3 of the 4 key indicators that we need for a volcanic eruption have already occurred. Professor Ofgun Ahmet Erkan, he is the one that said that, and that is quite scary. In his words, he said, if the eruption coincides with an earthquake, it could generate tsunami waves affecting the Aegean Islands, Crete, Peloponnese, and the coastal regions of Turkey as well, like the Teke Peninsula. And we know, 1956, there was also a tsunami that was created just by the earthquake, up to 80 feet high, 25 meters. And it has done some damage as well. Professor Erkan has also posted a graphic here that shows a little bit what is going on, and he shows a subduction zone. We do have a subduction zone, and he's also mentioning Kolumbo. So he says, if the Santorini or the Kolumbo volcano erupt, and if they're emptying out their magma chambers, if the magma comes out as lava, they will create tsunami waves when these craters, the magma chambers collapse with the volcano mouth, with that caldera. So that can happen underwater. If parts of the caldera, of the rims collapse, that can cause a tsunami. And I have a pretty good animation that shows this. This is for subduction zone, but also if something collapses, you know it if you're in a bathtub and you have your leg out and then you put it suddenly in, probably make a big spill in your bathroom. So tsunami waves, he says, will reach the Anatolian coast at a speed of 100 kilometers per hour in only 1.5 hours. And he says the good thing is during this period, precautions can be taken. So this is what he has posted, and this is what he says. And another thing that he posted, and he's also underlying it with graphics, which is pretty interesting, is he says our expectations came true in Santorini. He says 3 submarine volcanoes have been identified in the Amorgos Basin. That is basically that area here, the Amorgos Fault that you see here, and there we also have the cluster of these earthquakes. He says that's a region in the northeast of the Santorini volcano island where right now the earthquakes have migrated and they are concentrated. So there are 3 volcanoes. We have only talked about 2 at the moment, Kolumbo and Santorini, but there's also, and that sounds kind of friendly, hopefully, Christina. And you see here the green area, active volcanic arc. That's the Hellenic arc. That's what we're dealing with right now. This is where the action is that we're dealing, and that Santorini is dealing with right now. And there it shows a little bit more detailed, this yellow arc here, where we see all these volcanoes. And you see Santorini and Kolumbo, they're very close together. And he has also said something else, and he's relating to what I just said. He said, according to Greek geophysicists, the Santorini volcano erupts every 20,000 years. Its last eruption was 1630 BC, and it destroyed the Minoan civilization, one of the really high-level civilization in Akrotiri, with 28 to 40 cubic meters of lava, hot ash clouds, and volcanic gases. And he says about Santorini, the volcano is alive and it accumulates 4 million cubic meters of lava in its magma chamber every year to prepare for a new eruption. So the magma chamber is filling, and we've just had it confirmed a few days ago that land rise that is there underneath Santorini, in that little island in the middle where we saw the 1956 eruption. So I show you this video here. It really looks volcanic. It really looks threatening. So it's uninhabited. You see the old lava flows from 1956. So he says in the next 150 years, it will have loaded the magma chamber equal to the accumulation when it erupted in 1650 BC. 3,500 years have passed since then, since the eruption. So it erupts every 20,000 years, but it could erupt every 3,500 years or something. So, but he thinks for the big, super, super scary one, that's not due yet. Then he talks about Kolumbo again. He says, well, it's just a little bit northeast of Santorini, and it's 500 meters below sea level, and its crater is 2.5 kilometers wide, and there are known eruptions of Kolumbo in 1707 till 1712, 1866 till 1870, 1920, 1939 till 1941, and 1950. So he thinks if they erupt, an earthquake accompanying a large eruption would probably be at most magnitude 6. And he says that does not pose a problem for the Turkish coast. Of course, he's looking at the perspective from Turkey. Why does he think that this is volcanic activity, that we're having a potential problem here? So Professor Erkan has said that, so far the strongest quake is 5.3. He explained that the depth of these tremors, and we know the tremors are shallow, between like 1 and 5 kilometers, most of them. There's one a little bit like 10 kilometers, but that is still considered shallow. This is why he says that suggests that they originate from the volcano's magma chamber, because that is also very shallow. And for him, the shallow depths confirm that the quakes are linked to volcanic activity. He says the rising pressure in the magma chamber, approximately 250 bars, combined with extreme temperatures of 2,200 degrees Celsius, is attempting to break through the Earth's crust. That's what he is saying. He also noted that if a potential eruption would produce silica-rich lava, it could lead to explosive volcanic bombs. Also not good. And he says, and should all that be accompanied by an earthquake, tremors between magnitude 5 and 7 could generate the tsunami waves and potentially impacting coastal settlements in the marine activities in the region. 4 signs that a volcanic eruption could be imminent. If you're following my channel for a while, we've been watching this in other areas, right? Especially in Iceland, where this thing is erupting maybe every 4 to 6 weeks. For over a year now, we're just waiting for the next one. And we're watching these signs: ground swelling, the magma chambers filling up, and but then also shallow earthquakes and seismic swarms. In Iceland, it's pretty, if you really see a cluster like the clusters that we see here, doesn't last very long, maybe a few hours at most, and then we see the eruption. What we're seeing here at Santorini is really, really strange. Okay, number 1, he says shallow earthquakes and seismic swarms. Number 2, gas emissions. We don't have that yet. Hopefully we won't. But we do have them at Kolumbo. 3, noises from the ground. We hear that. Definitely it's rumbling. Residents have described it as unnerving, as really, really scary, humming sound, rattling sound. And then he says number 4, ground swelling. Yes, that has been confirmed. Both at Kolumbo, it's filling up, and at Santorini. And he says Santorini has already experienced 3 of these 4 signs. But of course, he says, even with these indicators, an eruption is not guaranteed. So he doesn't say this is definitely leading towards an eruption. He said it could happen within a week, it could happen within a year, or it may not occur at all. And this is always what we think, like, oh yeah, the scientists, right? But they're not to blame. It is, the science is not progressed enough. They don't really know. They can't tell. And he has compared it, like similar symptoms have happened in Turkey with the Tendurek volcano and with Mount Ararat. As Santorini is being constantly rattled by these earthquakes, of course, many scientists, seismologists, geologists, geophysicists, they're weighing in and they're trying to explain. And I'd like you to have a look at this map here. That's a very, very good map that shows what's going on there. So basically, We have over 9,000, probably close to 10,000 earthquakes right now. And you see Santorini there, and then you see the underwater volcano Kolumbo. The darker the dots, if you can't even make out dots there because it's such a cluster, the darker the dot, the deeper the quake, and the larger the dot, the larger the quake. But it's just one colored area, right? We can't even make that out. So let's have a look at experts from the German Research Center for Geosciences, because, you know, that earthquake swarm has led to a state of emergency that has been declared basically since late January. Kolumbo basically sits between Santorini and the neighboring island of Amorgos. And in between, we have this swarm that is now traveling eastwards. February 5th, we had the largest quake, 5.3, many say 5.2, but in that magnitude. So what is their explanation for why these quakes are happening? Of course, we would all like to know, and I can only provide you with this opinion, this opinion, this opinion, and you have to make up your own mind. It could be a mix of everything. That's what I think. I think, yeah, fault lines, but volcanic as well. So in between Santorini, the underwater volcano Kolumbo, and Amorgos, there have been many, many earthquakes, and they're still happening between 4 and 10 kilometers, like 2.5 and 6 miles deep for quite a long time, with magnitudes that have reached above magnitude 5. I think 4 or 5 quakes, whichever agency determines them. One is 4.8, the other say that was 5.1. They have been moving northeastward in recent days along a crustal zone that has a weakness, and that is, this zone is running from northwest to southwest. So maybe the land rise of the volcano or the magma that has caused shaking has activated that fault line, or vice versa. As it's traveling towards that fault line, something probably maybe has activated that fault line there. So overall, earthquake swarms are not common in this area. It's one of the most seismically active areas, and then there's active volcanoes, so it's not a surprise. But the way this is unfolding, with like not stopping and in these higher ranges every 3 to 5 or 10 minutes, it's crazy. And as it goes on, it keeps rattling these structures on Santorini, causing more damage and making the cliffs more vulnerable for landslides. So possible explanation is volcanic activity. This is also what the German experts are saying, because they say if there's magma or other volcanic fluids that is rising upward in the Earth's crust, it causes this rumbling. Definitely another possibility is the movement of tectonic plates that are in place there as well, and that can lead to stress in the rock and also the sudden release of these stresses and these earthquakes. But for such a long time, but the question I also have to ask for the volcano, for such a long time, what is happening? And they're also saying a combination of that is also conceivable, and I have said that for quite a while if you're watching my videos. So they're saying that there's individual segments of the Aegean tectonic plate in the region around Santorini that are moving away from each other by just a few millimeters each year, but they're moving away. And we know this in Iceland. If the crust is weakened and it's torn apart, take a piece of dough if you want to bake bread and you stretch it, then there's a weakness in the middle, and that weakness, magma can use it to reach to the surface. So it's thinning the Earth's crust by moving away from each other. That's a big problem for Iceland. Also Ethiopia, if you're watching my channel. So when the crust stretches, fluids and magma can rise up towards the surface. They have also shown us a high resolution picture here that shows the earthquake activity offshore of Santorini. I mean, tectonic plates aside, what is Santorini made of? Santorini is made from volcanoes. It is a volcano, so to speak. So it's part of an island group that is made from overlapping shield volcanoes. And these volcanoes are all courtesy of tectonic plates that meet there. So earthquakes could be due to volcanoes, or they could just be due to the underlying tectonic activity. So the last major eruption in Santorini was 1956, right? 2011, the area underneath the volcano at Santorini did also have seismic activity with very shallow quakes at a depth of 1 to 2 kilometers. That's 0.6 to 1.25 miles, but there was no eruption, right? Nothing happened. But we know one thing, maybe there was a magma intrusion, maybe something was happening. At Campi Flegrei, we had a big Brady seismic swarm with earthquakes and land rise. Nothing came to the surface. Magma must have intruded parallel to the surface, but it has weakened the crust. So we know that since that Brady seismic activity, the crust at Campi Flegrei in Italy has only a third of its strength left. And now it's rattling again. Pretty crazy there. And maybe this is similar in this area. But then, there's other problems, because Santorini, this is the edges of a crater rim that's sticking out of the water. And this is volcanic rocks. They're not super stable. So the immediate issue that they have at Santorini is that this continuous swarm of earthquakes, rattling again, could trigger landslides. Buildings could come down the cliffs. So officials are telling people to stay away from the cliffs and from the beaches, because it could come down on you if you're on the beach. And then also tsunamis that could be triggered by landslides. Of course, as we say, volcanic eruption possible, larger earthquake, not out of the question. So will the Santorini earthquake swarm lead to a major quake or a volcanic eruption? What are the Germans saying? They're definitely saying the current situation calls for heightened awareness. But they say it's not possible to predict when such an earthquake swarm will occur, and there are precursor phenomena, especially in volcanic earthquake swarms. We are currently investigating the temporal development and accompanying changes in the earthquake swarm, such as uplift or subsidence. Subsidence is if there was a magma intrusion. It didn't reach the surface, but magma was flowing out of the magma chamber, so land subsides maybe that as a reason, or something tectonic that leads to a subsidence. But they're saying a volcanic eruption cannot be predicted either. But he says, however, unlike earthquakes, volcanic eruptions often have clear precursor phenomena. And that's what the Turkish professor also said, right? So they say these phenomena include ground uplift, swarm earthquakes, check, which intensify before an eruption and then move towards the Earth's surface or seabed. So they're saying so far, and unfortunately, there's not enough data to warn of an imminent eruption. But definitely they say stay off the cliffs. That's definitely correct in any case. So then, of course, it seems they do not rule out a volcanic eruption. What would happen if there was an eruption or a major earthquake? Well, we've kind of seen it in 1956. July 1956, 2 earthquakes with magnitudes of over 7 occurred in this now seismically active region. Well, one was 6.7, one was 7.7, some say 7.5, in that range. And one of them occurred in the upper Earth's crust and has caused a local tsunami with wave heights of up to 80 feet, like 25 meters, on the island of Amorgos. That island really got it. And of course, the quakes caused extensive damage in the region, with 50 people that were lost. But they say that rupture zone has not yet accumulated enough energy again. But they say movements in other previously inactive rupture zones cannot be ruled out either. So in conclusion, if there was an earthquake comparable to 1956 or a volcanic eruption like 1650 BC, if that were occur today, stronger effects could be expected due to the denser population on these islands in that region. Like strong ground shaking could damage or cause buildings to collapse, especially older buildings or those that were not constructed to be earthquake proof, and we know they're there. Many of them actually. Tsunamis could hit coastal regions and lead to flooding, not only on Santorini, guys, also neighboring islands and also the Greek mainland. Then more submarine landslides around the caldera could also occur, but they think that probability is still low. So I hope that helps to, I don't want to say get some clarity, because we still don't know what's unfolding, what this will turn into. But thanks for watching, guys. Check out my other videos. There's way more information and pictures and videos about what's going on in Santorini. And if you want to support the channel, guys, please go to my buymeacoffee.com/silky website and buy me a coffee or two. I'm supporting my animals with that. Apollo's vet bill, he's fighting cancer, and also my horses to get them through the winter. So it's greatly appreciated, and thanks for all that you're doing there. It's really helping a lot, and for your supers and for just being here and for becoming a member. So the links are in the description of this video if you want to become a member. Go to my channel page and check out the section for member videos. If that sounds interesting to you, join our group of volcano freaks. And hello to all new members, and hello to my older members as well. And I see you very, very soon with another update, guys. Another chaotic story. It's coming soon, but Santorini keeps me so busy, so I'd rather want to send this out to you to get you that information. But it's all coming soon. For my night owls that are watching me right now, I hope you can sleep well after this. And for the ones that just woke up, have a strong coffee. There's more to come. Bye bye, guys.